Hello and welcome. My name is Chad Martini. I'm the Land Services Manager at Stearns County. One of my roles at Stearns County is working with legal drainage systems. And today I want to take you through a presentation that's designed for you as a property owner about questions or concerns you may have about some upcoming projects being discussed regarding County Ditch 28. The reason this presentation is important to you as a property owner is because there is a possibility that the number of property owners who currently participate in the ditch may expand through a legal process called redetermination. Redetermination is where engineers and ditch viewers look at who utilizes the ditch as a utility by sending their water to it. Ultimately, it's the Stearns County Board of Commissioners who act as the legal drainage authority for County Ditch 28, who will decide what projects are or are not approved. As a property owner, it's very important that you understand that all costs for projects in a ditch are split and assessed to all the property owners who participate in the drainage system in the form of special tax assessments. So again, the presentation goal here is to provide you as a property owner more information about some of the projects being discussed, what they mean, so that you can share any feedback or opinions that you may have with the county commissioners before any decisions are made. Approval of an engineering repair report could lead to additional projects. And we'll get more into detail of what those mean, what they cost as we move forward into the future slides. Let's start with what a legal drainage system is. It's not the road ditch along the county road. It's established by property owner petition. So at some point in time, generally a long time ago in the early 1900s, property owners actually asked the county to establish a legal drainage ditch. And the whole purpose was to drain land for agricultural purposes. A lot of ditches in Stearns County weren't necessarily drained for row crops, but more for pasture land for livestock. Once established, people called ditch viewers would determine which properties participated in the system. It generally is a team of 3 ditch viewers, and they go out and they scope and survey the land to figure out who, in their judgment, benefits from participating in the system. Again, this all happened a long, long time ago. And again, as we've talked about, any costs for maintaining a drainage system, again, are paid through special tax assessments to all those property owners who participate in that drainage system. Now, one of the things we're talking about with County Ditch 28 is repairing the ditch. And what that means is by law, you can only repair a ditch to what was originally constructed. We're not able to make it wider. We can't make it deeper than the records show was originally constructed. Stearns County also has no legal authority to work beyond the limits of the legally established ditch, which is a very common question, especially if you happen to live at the end of a drainage system. So we've been talking a lot about Stearns County Ditch 28, but let's talk a little bit about where it is and kind of some of the history with it. So it basically is in Holdingford Township, Albany Township, runs from Quaker Road in Albany, Albany Township, flows north through Tuvers Lake, and legally ends at the culverts on County Road 17 in Holdingford. This particular ditch was established in 1906, again by property owner petition. The Stearns County Board of Commissioners act as the legal drainage authority, and they do have a legal responsibility to maintain the ditch. So the ditch benefit is a legal term that represents all the properties that were determined in 1906 to participate in this ditch, County Ditch 28. Individual property cost share is determined by the ditch viewers. So in this case, the breakdown of who pays what was done in 1906. It's important to note for you as a property owner, the costs are not split equally across all properties. It doesn't necessarily have to do with how much land you own, but generally specifics of your property. How close to the water are you? You know, the elevation and terrain of your property. Example costs that might be incurred by a ditch system are removing beaver dams. We're legally obligated as staff to inspect the ditches periodically. And then, of course, things like the repair we're talking about. So really anything we have to spend money on in the system, uh, again, gets put back to the property owners in the form of special assessments. And what this map shows is every property owner in green on this map is a participant in County Ditch 28 and is responsible for paying a share of costs that are incurred by the system. So how did we get here? You know, how did we get to talking about these projects? Most recently, it started at the direction of the County Board of Commissioners to staff, where we were instructed to reach out to you, the property owner, educate you on what the projects we're talking about potentially approving are, their costs, and allow you to provide feedback so the commissioners can take that into consideration when making a decision. Where we're at right now was based on engineering that was done in the ditch last year to address concerns of flooding in and around County Ditch 28. And what that engineering looked at was the condition and status of the ditch. You know, what's happening, what are any problems that potentially exist. And there were some recommendations that we'll talk about in the next few slides. Again, as a property owner, November 17th, 2020 is an important date for you because that is when the Board of Commissioners at the county board meeting are going to take up this issue of the engineer's repair report and making a decision on it. If that's approved, that is going to require money to be spent by the ditch system, and property owners are going to be responsible for paying that cost. So let's talk a little bit about that engineering report that brought us to where we are today. So the goal last year was to determine the condition of the ditch, but then also visually map the effects of these potential repair scenarios. The three scenarios that the engineers modeled with the computer were the current conditions, the fish barrier on the lake outlet of Two Rivers Lake being removed, and then removing the fish barrier and doing a repair from lake outlet to holding ford. All three of these scenarios, what the engineer looked at was where does the water go when these actions take place. The scenarios are based on a 2, 10, and 100-year rain events, with the 2-year being the most frequent and 100-year being the most infrequent. The table here is on page 3 of the report, and this is right out of the engineering. You can go to the Stearns County Ditch 28 webpage. You can download this report. You can read it for yourself. Simply Google Stearns County Ditch 28 should bring you right to our project page. What this table shows is feet above sea level, and is what it's showing if we just look at this 2-year column. Existing conditions, where's water, remove the fish trap, now where's water, do a repair, now where's water. The maximum peak reduction we get is in the 2-year rain event, meaning the bigger the rain event, the less impactful those repairs are. Um, Moving on to this slide, what I did was took the numbers, these numbers in feet, and I converted them to inches because I think it makes it a little bit easier to digest the information. The takeaway here is what the computer model shows is that in a 2-year rain event, the maximum benefit we can achieve is about 10 inches. We get 6.5 inches by removing the fish barrier, and we get an additional 3.5 inches by performing a repair. These numbers again are reducing the peak water during rain events. The total being specifically 9.96 or about 10 inches by doing both the removal of the fish barrier and performing the repair. The engineer's report came with some recommendations. The first one was that the fish barrier be removed because it realizes the most available reduction during peak. Long story short, you take out the fish trap, you're going to get the most drainage at the cheapest cost. There's also a recommendation that a repair report be completed. This engineering repair report is that decision point on November 17th, 2020 that the county commissioners are going to be taking up. And the whole point of this presentation, again, is to give you, the property owner, more background information so you can communicate with the commissioners any thoughts, concerns, or opinions you have about moving forward with that engineer's repair report. We know that performing a single repair is both functionally and financially more efficient. You do one repair, you bring out the excavator once rather than multiple times, it's cheaper, and it performs better. Last recommendation, which we'll talk more about in the coming slides, is a redetermination of benefits being considered. And again, we'll talk more about that, but in the next slides, I really want to show the mapping of these engineering numbers that we've been talking about. So mapping of these engineer numbers. What we see here is an example of the interactive map that we put on our Stearns County webpage. You can go out, you can play with this map, turn different scenarios on, different rain events on, and actually see where the computer model predicts or tells us water is going to go. I added the web address right here. We have instructions out there for how to use this. I tried to go through step by step. Certainly any questions, call, email us. Contact information is in a letter that was mailed to all the property owners that we thought would be impacted. So let's look at this mapping. What we're looking at here, again, I picked a random area just for the sake of display. You can certainly go out, dig into it, spend more time with it than I'll spend here. But what we see here is where water goes in a 2-year rain event. So everything in blue, that's where water goes if we get a 2-year rain event. This yellow line here represents the shoreline. So you can kind of see what water's doing along this shoreline here and kind of where these pockets of water go during a rain event. Now what you can do with this interactive mapping is now I can look at this same 2-year rain event and I can say, well, where does water go if the fish trap is removed? So now what we see is this light blue color representing, okay, if you take out the 2-year or the fish trap in this 2-year rain event, we can see these inland pockets of water are shrinking. We're getting positive reduction in water moving back towards the lake. And then again, staying in that 2-year rain event, this is what water looks like if the fish trap is removed and a repair is executed. This crosshatch now shows, again, how the water's shrinking because the ditch is functioning better than it was prior to those actions. Again, the yellow line representing generally the shoreline of the lake, and these different colors showing that reduction. Again, the interactive map on the web page, you can zoom to your property, you can zoom to any part of the map, and you can see what happens in these rain events. I encourage anybody that wants to know more about this modeling and visually see it to check that out. So now I thought it would be helpful to talk a little bit about project history, just to give some background as to a little bit more of how we got to where we are. Ditch inspections have occurred regularly since 2014 due to complaints of flooding on CD 28. Reestablishment of records happened in 2019. What that provides us is it establishes a ditch elevation profile and right-of-way of the ditch. And those are important because we understood earlier that ditches can't be repaired deeper or wider than were originally constructed. Because the ditch was constructed in 1906, nobody really knows what happens. So to meet the regulatory commitments of working in a ditch, reestablishment is a legal process by which we can attain the data we need to be able to move forward with repairs. Engineer's condition report. That was the most recent report. That's the one we're talking about earlier in the report with the mapping. Provided a hydraulic model that allows us to simulate rainfall events. It really gives us insight into, what's happening when we get rainfall events, where's the flooding occurring, based on the condition of the ditch. Both reports really highlight maintenance needs that arise over time due to weather events, sedimentation, land use changes, and many other factors. It's important we spend some time talking about the DNR. County Ditch 28, although a legal ditch, is also Two Rivers River. Now in Minnesota, all public waters fall under the oversight of the DNR. To help the DNR understand how potential ditch activity might impact their oversight responsibilities on public waters, engineering like we're talking about is necessary to go to the next step towards repair. Projects under consideration. Now this is where we really start to tie projects and then the cost of projects into the presentation here. The first one, the engineer's repair report, that's our November 17th Board of Commissioners decision point. However, if that report is approved, that could lead to two additional projects, a ditch redetermination and the actual repair to the ditch. So again, there's a domino effect here. If the engineer's repair report is approved, the next considerations are going to be these other two projects. Again, every project's going to come with a cost. That cost gets paid for by the participants of the drainage system. So now it's time to talk about these projects in more specifics and associate some costs with them. Again, first, the engineer's repair report. This is the next decision point, November 17th, 2020, Stearns County Board of Commissioners meeting. It is the next step towards repairing County Ditch 28 and the first step towards that. The estimated cost of this engineering is between $25,000 and $30,000. The engineer's repair report follows Minnesota statute, which dictates what this report must include. And parts of what that statute says is the report needs to show the necessary repairs. It needs to provide an estimated cost of the repairs, and then details plans, specifications that are all necessary to actually award the contract to a vendor to actually execute the repair. Now the actual repair to the ditch, the whole purpose is to remove accumulation in the ditch so we can get back to that as constructed 1906 condition. The project area is about 2.8 miles long. The repair is based on an estimate of $5 a linear foot, engineering, legal, tree removal so we can have access to the water. We get a very rough estimate of $200,000 for repair. Again, an engineer's repair report is going to provide a much better estimate, whether it's higher or lower. So here's a map of the repair area. We see that County Ditch 28 starts all the way down at Quaker Road in Albany Township, but you can see our repair is from Lake Outlet to the culverts in Holdingford. Excavation south of Two Rivers Lake is going to require more discussion with the DNR. Because there was very little excavation performed south of the lake in 1906, and knowing that legally we can only repair to what was as constructed, that will require much more discussion to talk about actually doing excavation work south of Two Rivers Lake. What is ditch redetermination? Ditch redetermination is the whole reason that we sent out letters to a lot of property owners. We know there's about 230 property owners currently in the County Ditch 28 system. We mailed about 2,200 letters because we know if the ditch were ever redetermined, it's going to get larger. Specifically, the drainage system redetermination, again, is a legal process by which the drainage system is updated to reflect current conditions. A lot's changed since 1906. In the case of CD28, costs would be shared by property owners determined to use CD28 based on 2020 conditions rather than the original 1906 determination. The reason redetermination gets brought up is because the current assessments are tied to 1906, and land use and benefited areas of the system have simply changed over the last 100+ years. Based on Ditch Viewer's estimate, again, Ditch Viewers being the team of experts that go out and use modern technology to determine who's utilizing County Ditch 28, they're estimating that approximately 43,000 acres with a cost of at least $175,000 to do a ditch redetermination. And again, all the property owners in the newly redetermined system pay for that ditch redetermination. Here's a map that shows what this looks like. So the CD28 watershed is the natural area that's been determined through engineering that contributes water to the ditch. That's what this thick orange line means, that we see here the current benefit is shown in green. And you can see it's very close to the water, whereas if we redetermine it, we push out to that orange boundary and we go from about 3,000 acres to that 43,000 acres. We increase property owners from 230 to about 3,000 properties in that orange. So again, if you're a property owner and you're looking at this map and you see that your property is inside that orange boundary, you're going to possibly be affected by a ditch redetermination. Again, redetermination updates the drainage system based on which properties contribute water to County Ditch 28. And again, I can't stress this enough. Anybody deemed through redetermination or currently, those are the people that help pay for all these ditch costs. Project summary. The next required step to move forward is this engineer's repair report. If it's approved on November 17th, 2020 by the county commissioners, it could lead to redetermination and repair projects. Those are two separate decision points, with the engineer's repair report being the first. So again, if approved at a future Board of Commissioners meeting, then the redetermination of the ditch system would move forward. And again, if approved at a future Board of Commissioners meeting, the repair project would move forward. But again, the first step is November 17th, 2020, where the commissioners will look at this engineer's repair report and decide, should that go forward, should that not go forward. Quick summary of costs. Engineer's repair report, we're looking at an estimate between $25,000 and $30,000. A ditch redetermination, if it were approved at a future date, we're looking at a minimum of $175,000 for the ditch redetermination. And then if we get to a point where repair is approved, the cost estimate is about $200,000, knowing that that engineer's repair report would give us a much more accurate estimate of the cost of a repair. So now to kind of sum up the presentation here today, we really want you as a property owner to feel comfortable in some of these projects being discussed. Hopefully this presentation's helped, but certainly email, call, write us a letter, check out our website. I've included here the web address for the County Ditch Project's website, and ultimately the commissioners really want to hear your feedback. If you'll take time to fill out our digital survey, I've included the web address there. If you don't like web or online surveys, you can always write a letter, you can always send an email. We want to make sure we collect all the feedback that you as property owners have shared and make sure that gets presented to the commissioners on November 17th. So not only do they have the engineering data and all the other information staff's collected about CD28, but they also have your thoughts as a property owner, knowing that you may very well have a role in cost sharing of the projects that are approved. One last time, that online survey URL, your feedback is very important. Please check that out. I appreciate everybody that's watched this presentation. I know it's a lot of information. I know it's confusing, especially if you're not familiar with county drainage. I hope this helped. I hope it's a starting point for you in reaching out to Stearns County staff to answer any other questions you may have. And again, November 17th, 2020, the county commissioners will make a decision about whether or not to move forward with that repair report. Again, I appreciate your time. Thanks for checking out this presentation.